Eating meat nowadays is a choice for the global north of the world. And a change in the way we eat meat is simply necessary, as the impact of this choice is so deep. Running a catering business with my wife, we have prepared many meals for different occasions, and I've noticed that there are fewer and fewer requests for meat. Why so? I have a few ideas in mind that I want to share with you today with the help of other gastronomes working in the meat industry who have witnessed this change from different angles. Hi, I'm BenGingi, a gastronome, baker, and a chef. And this is Gastronome Wanted, a podcast by the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo in collaboration with Cora Media. In this podcast, you will hear stories from graduates of our university to understand the world of gastronomic sciences and food cultures. In this episode, we will hear various voices from the University of Gastronomic Sciences alumni who have a lot to say about meat consumption without any filters and without judgments. Francesca Grazioli, working with countries in the Global South as a research assistant at Bioversity International, wrote a book about the connection between intensive farming and climate change.
Meat has such a power in itself. In the past, it used to be the food of the kings, of the powerful. And this is because it's actually quite difficult to get meat. It's quite time-consuming, resource-consuming. But it's also something that you cannot really store for a long time. It can be spoiled very easily. And there is all this connection to the fact that we are eating something that was alive just before. And the line between what is a human being, what is an animal, it's becoming more and more blurry the more scientific discoveries are done in that direction. So on one side, there is this huge, powerful, symbolic aspects of meat. So on one side, it's also our dominance on nature and so on. And on the other side is the fact that it's become actually such a commodity that creates a sort of veil of invisibility on the implication of consuming so much meat.
During my studies in Pollenzo, I had the opportunity to visit farms raising animals, and among those, there were some run by UNISC alumni. Like all businesses, they all differ one from another. When we think about a farm, we may picture an intensive one. And even though they are the majority, I wanted to talk to those smaller ones that risk being overshadowed by the bigger players. Value Unite is an agricultural cooperative in northern Italy that has existed for 40 years now. They produce wine, food for animals, and grains. They make some preserves and run their own restaurant. Elisabeth Paul, originally from Germany, works there and is responsible for the meat production and, of course, she eats meat.
I probably wouldn't eat meat if I wouldn't produce it. I have drastically lowered my meat consumption within the last years, and I mainly try to eat meat where I directly know where it comes from, or it's produced by us, or it's produced by people that I know. Unless it's a very difficult situation where your grandmother is cooking it and you can't say no.
Rethinking an industry that has been so static for such a long time is so difficult. In this huge and complex picture, new technologies are finding their share in the market. And since we gastronomes love complexity, some of us work in the industry too. I'm talking about food innovation. Here is Achi Raanan from Israel, like me, and also was my classmate in Pollenzo. Besides being a great chef, Achi works at Redefine Meat, a plant-based company able to produce steaks, minced meat, and many other products using a 3D printing technology.
So the same as traditional meat is being made from protein and blood and fat, which are the three basic pillars, let's call it. Same thing happens with our products. So the protein would be soy protein and pea protein. The fat would be canola oil and coconut fat. And the blood would be blueberries and beetroot. It does have maltodextrin, which is a type of complex sugar that adds to the texture. We do not have any preservatives or antioxidants, E400, E500, nitrates, stuff like that in our product. And yeah, I think I can say with a lot of confidence that it's more sustainable than the industrial meat.
I cook a lot of traditional dishes that are plant-based. In many countries, meat hasn't always been available, and in others, it still isn't. But sometimes traditional dishes include meat, and when that happens, I want to support virtuous farmers, because not all farmers are the same. And Elisabeth confirms that.
The question that currently is asked, if it's meat or no meat, but I think we should rather question ourselves which kind of agriculture we want to have and which kinds of meat we want to eat. So I don't see myself eating artificial meat at the point that I do not see on the ingredients list where the proteins come from. I see myself rather sustaining a local meat production that is to eat very few meats, but to eat meats that are locally sourced. The positive aspect of this meat production is actually astonishingly well documented right now. So, I'm trying to promote a future that looks into grazing systems rather than animal skyscrapers and lab-grown meat, actually. And I think that is a discussion that we have to have now in order to have a path for the future. How do we want to live? It's not only going to affect your choice in the supermarket. It is going to affect about how your landscape around you is going to be built in the next years to come. Your social landscape, your environmental landscape, your local economics.
What type of future we want to shape? Becoming a father made me think about this like never before. Future generations depends on the choices we make today, and we have to try to have as little impact as possible on the current situation. As a baker and a chef, I love experimenting with food and new recipes, and I want to go about it in the best way possible, not just the easiest and fastest. I talked about it with Achi, an active member of the food tech industry, to address my curiosity about these innovations.
I came to the conclusion that I want to be part of the food tech industry for a lot of reasons. One, it gives me the opportunity to affect people in a very wide way. Like a decision that I take, a company that I'm starting to work with, a restaurant chain that we are cooperating with will affect the lives of hundreds of people a day. So I really enjoy that aspect. It's making a living out of something that is, it's doing good to the world. Reducing meat consumption, in my eyes, it's a good cause, and it's something to wake up for in the morning. And the third, it's coming back to culinary. It's that I go to amazing chefs and cooks and people from this world of gastronomy and culinary. And every time that I go to them with this product that is very innovative, it's very new, it's very challenging to use sometimes, it's exciting to me. It's exciting to me to support this process of putting this type of products on their menus. What does it mean to put it on the menu? The statement that comes behind it, to show people that it's doable, it's tasty. I really enjoy it on a personal level of being part of, shaping in my way what I see is right for the world. And, this is the direction that the world is going to with this type of products. And I enjoy being part of that change and directing it in the way that I think is right.
Achi works for a company that tries to respond to an increase in demand for meat, assuming that it will keep increasing, and without having as much of an effect on the environment. So for sure, creating a plant-based product could be an immediate solution in terms of emissions reduction and taste education. But as we were saying at the beginning of this episode, in the global north we can easily decide to shift from consuming one product to another and decide how to change our diet in the way that suits us. Unfortunately, this is not always the case for everyone. Also, farmers and producers need to make their own decisions. In fact, producing at an intensive scale is not the same as producing extensively. Being a professional baker at the industrial level is not the same as being an artisanal one. The same goes for catering or working in a restaurant, and we can continue with many more examples. So progress doesn't have the same meaning for everyone.
I'm in a sector that needs progress. I'm in a sector that needs to change. So our production within the cooperative is not close to perfect at all. the nice point is that we can decide about it. So we stop, we look at it, and we think about what we need to change. And it will take time, and it takes always time, and it's chaotic, but you can see progress, and you can see the decisions, you can see values, and you can see decisions that we make on a smallest scale basis because it is our production on our hectares. But we can see that we are part of a bigger discussion within Europe, and we're in the middle of it because we're small, but we're many. So I'm actually thinking about starting with some sheep right now in order to tackle the drought crisis in our production, the African swine fever crisis. So I have some land because I can't use it for my animals at the moment. We have to rethink the bovine sector in the cooperative, which will take some years. But I think that the most fascinating in my work is that we actually in a process, and no day is the same.
The relationship between humans and animal consumption changed drastically during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are now aware of the risk of other viruses being transmitted from animals to us. It's harder for people to be concerned about animals just as living beings, but it's clearer if their conditions impact our everyday lives. And it makes me wonder why we search so hard for an easy answer to such a complex topic, like should or shouldn't eat meat. Sometimes I just wish I had the perfect consumer guide helping me make more conscious and better decisions without compromises and without having any guilt. I ask myself if Francesca's book could be that guide, but so far, I'm not really sure.
So on one side, we have this also here in this topic, this trend of polarizing positions like everywhere. No, everything now is becoming more white or black. And it's also true that the consumption of meat or, for example, deciding not to consume animal becomes part of your identity. So it becomes an issue that touch dimensions, that it's not just like, I am in favor of pineapple on pizza against, oh my God, no. And I think that what the younger generation is doing, especially with climate change, for them, the stakes are higher. So I also think that the passion and the involvement is higher because they know that like in 20 years, the war that we are experiencing right now will not be the same. And this kind of paralysis that I see from those who should actually decide can be extremely frustrating. And that's why at the end of the book, I really suggest to feel as part of this like huge net where any action, every action is important, like discussing this at table, being uncomfortable on Christmas, during Christmas dinner with your relatives. And it's not just about meat, no, because food also can be a convener of gender dimension, neo-colonialism, and so on. The contamination of all these topics, I think it's one of the first steps, of course, it would be like to get to know what you're eating. In a society that want us to scroll, to have just like a continued pulse of emotions, like stop and reflect would be already quite an act, a radical act, I think.
Hopefully, with this episode, we've planted the seed for a new conversation, one that for sure doesn't end today. This change is happening and we have to constantly keep up with that. We will continue to talk about it not only during holidays, like Francesca was encouraging us to do, but every day with friends and family. See you soon, gastronomes! Gastronome Wanted is a podcast produced by the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo and Cora Media. Narrated by me, BenGingi, written with Alessandra Altimare, Eleonora Bergoglio, Ilaria Galvagno, and Luca Martinotti. Studio recordings by Radio Brown The Rocks. The sound engineer for the recordings is Roberto Fortunato. Post-production and sound design are by Jacopo Rainero. Sound and music supervision is by Andrea Girelli. Content supervisors are Graziano Nani and Francesca Berardi for Cora Media. Production is by Eleonora Bergoglio. Production support is by Monia Donati for Cora Media and Paolo Ferrarini.